So, hey Darren, how are you? You've been through an amazing experience in the last few weeks and months, but I wanted to first ask you how the last few days have gone. What's happening on the ground in our nation's capital? Because you were like there longer than some of the people were there.
Yeah, well, I was there when the police actually swept the campgrounds yesterday morning at about, I think they started at about 10:30, assembled with federal officers and also what looked like ASIO officers. Like they all had big four-wheel drives. There's about 20 four-wheel drives. When I was moved on, there was at least 50 to 60 officers who came into a campground that was probably equipped for about 100 caravans, but there would have only been about half a dozen left. The word had got out that people who had paid in advance, but they got a text message the night before saying that they'd be refunded and the campground would be officially closed.
Right.
So yeah, they did just a sweeping move. If you complied with their request to pack up, there was no confrontation that I saw. It was intimidating, but they were in my experience, they were pretty easy to get along with. If you treated them with a bit of respect, they were more than happy to do the same.
Right.
So yeah, we were ushered out. We're going to go to another campground in Queanbeyan. There was a lot of mixed information. There was no real direction for the ones who wanted to stay, but what we'd found out was every campground was being basically blocked as access. So we've still got a lot of people on the ground who are there because the ones who are there probably can't afford to get home. They've got nothing to go home to. It's look, at the moment, I think a lot of people are a little bit sort of deflated, but we need to actually embrace what happened over the last, 10 days. Well, I was there anyway, because it was just an amazing experience. We went there and did something really special. And the reason we're all feeling jaded is we're all battle weary from what we did, but at a level that most of us can't, really comprehend what happened. But it just grew and grew and grew. And, there's a lot of people who are saying negative things about it, but I didn't experience anything negative. The way that the campground was set up, that it grew exponentially. The first one was at Parliament, I think around Treasury they'd set up. I wasn't there for that. I got there just after they'd been moved on from there, but everyone was directed to the exhibition showgrounds in Canberra. So the first lot that got there established a kitchen, and all the donations were assembled in one point, and there was some people would say the control centre, and I think in a way a lot of people tried to use it as a control centre with narratives and different people. It was definitely an interesting dynamic. It's at night and the morning meeting as well. But look, in my experience, 90% of the people, had answered a calling. There was definitely agitators in the camp, but they were so easy to spot. There was so much love that anyone who had any aggression or anger in them just stood out. They may as well have had a flashing light on their head, because there was just so much love and affirmation for everyone who's probably, in my personal thing, it's only been 2.5 years of sort of awakening and more so enlightening the connection of spirit more so than anything else. So to experience that, all you had to do was smile at people. And, when people say we're energy beings and full of light and love, some of the embraces that you got to have with people, because it wasn't just hello and shake hands, it was a smile and a full-on hug, like it was meeting your tribe. And
well, from a spiritual or an energy perspective, there's the phrase, you know, when two or more gather in my name. It is so 2 and 2 doesn't equal 4. It is much greater than that. So I can imagine from an energetic perspective how huge that that pulse of happiness, that pulse of powerful, you know, self-worth, self-determination was, and how that sort of flowed around the entire globe.
Yeah. No, it was. I think we knew we were in a moment like the euphoria of coming through the gate. I don't know where it came from, but I was saying to people, the moment you came through the gate, you passed your soul test, answered a call. You weren't told to come. You weren't made to. You just felt this need, this want to be in Canberra, and we heard a calling, you know, and I don't think that's ever happened. Well, not in the history books that I've read, and I've never read one. So I just felt, and to look at the little kids carrying flags and that, I think we had our Woodstock type moment where the people, and it was just love and happiness and peace. And, you know, the people who got it right were the ones who did 20, 30, 40,000 steps around the camp every day and just interacting with each other. Because as people were driving in, there was almost like a cauldron of people who were just congratulating them on you know, making that journey from wherever they came. One night there was a gentleman who drove all the way from far northwestern Australia. It was a 51 hours straight drive, and
oh my goodness,
we all knew he was. Word just travelled around the camp, so I think it was midnight, but there was like 2,000 people there to greet him. Wow. Yeah.
Look, beautiful.
I don't think people really knew what was going to hit them once they got through those gates, but my journey started going to the Camp Makata, where the Sovereign Nations people had gathered, Bruce Shillington and Buddy and River and a few other people. I got to experience what the 10 Embassy was sort of representing and what the sovereign people were representing. And I was lucky enough to be there when their camp was, when I say destroyed, because I was able to communicate what I'd seen. And I thought it was, you know, really unfair. Like the 200 federal police that came in gave people 5 minutes warning, and if you weren't starting to pack up, they didn't just pull the tent down, they were demolishing their property. And it was
now, was this the tent city that has been there for quite a while, or is this a new arrival, a group in this situation?
I don't want to get into the Indigenous divide, just like we've got a divide in every other sort of society at the moment. What I saw, and I'll probably cop some flack for this, so we'll see, but when I walked in, the Sovereign Nations people had their own swags, tarps, tents, sleeping in vans, but it was a real communal thing.
And they're the people that got moved on, not the tent city wasn't moved on. It was the sovereign people who'd come, and their camp was less established, less accepted, and that was the one that was moved on. Were they moved on to the showgrounds as well, or did they take up somewhere else?
That was about a month before. See, I sort of look at it that it happened in 3 waves, and that was the first wave. Their celebration of 50 years of having sovereign people on that land. The 10 Embassy had 4 or 5 glamping tents, 2 marquees, an industrial generator, so much sponsored stuff that it didn't make sense. So,
how long have they been there, the tent city? How many years?
Well, 10 Embassy is supposed to have been established for 50 years.
Oh, it is the 50 years, right? Okay, so. But
there has been a split. Like I follow Lermper and a few others, Cindy, and I find myself more connected or to the sovereign nations and what that actually means. Like,
Mm.
I'm only 2.5 years into my journey of awakening and enlightening, but some of the information that I think I've sort of processed just by feeling through my gut more so.
Mm.
I'm on the verge of trying to get to Angonia to do some cultural learning with Buddy and the rest of those people, because they made a lot of sense in what they were actually saying.
Mm.
I've chosen not to take the juice, as some people call it, the orange juice or the Kool-Aid.
Or the Jabberwocky.
So have they.
Mm.
You know, the sovereign nations hold a very important key in all of this, I believe, to all of us, because what happened the second day that I went back after their camp was demolished was I was invited to do a ceremony with the elders that were there, and that was a reconnect to spirit and country ceremony, smoking ceremony. Having never been to church or any religious sort of, I've always been looking for a spiritual connection, and realised after that I actually was disconnected for a very, very, very long time, my whole life. And to reconnect to spirit and country has had a profound impact on me since that day. A lot of cemetery has happened along that way. I've met a lot of different people, interesting people. So, I think epic get together was something very, very special. If we're light beings, that's the darkest place on our realm.
Mm.
Was systematically built on the foundations of darkness, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
3 million reportedly light-loving souls walked up to that. And I think we pushed something back a fair degree. We showed that's never been in Canberra.
Mm.
I don't think that we've ever had that much loving light, and people who are sovereign in our beings. To follow that calling. Like people were saying, we were protesting for our freedom. No, we're free already. We were free the moment we made the choice to drive up there, not fighting for it. We were free in our movements, in our mind. As I said to people, you can be locked up and still free. You've just got to understand it.
Mm.
Which, not that I do, I'm still, trying to absorb or process everything that's happened over the last few days.
Mm. Yeah, and you're also processing the high frequency, not just the experiences and the interactions. And in the last, I wanted to, because we had talked earlier about how everybody left and everybody was feeling a bit deflated and everything. But in my last tarot reading that I did with Campbell, I talked about geese. And we were talking about the Canadian convoy, the Canadian truckers, and that they had come to the front and were breaking the path for all the other geese that were flying in that V formation. Then when they're tired, when they're weary, they go back to the back, and in comes Australia. So Australia in those weeks was leading, breaking the path, and the rest of the world was having a rest, coasting. And this is what is happening over and over. So the yellow vests were at the front. The Canadian convoy have been at the front. The New Zealand with the haka are at the front, because it takes a lot of energy to slowly increase the frequency on the planet. So we are like that flock of birds taking turns coming at the front. So where Australia is they've done the hard yards for as long as they could, as long as was necessary, and they've popped to the back, and now somebody else is coming up to lead and to break that new path. So I think that it's impossible for anybody to maintain that front of the flock forever.
Yeah. No, I look, I don't. That was the thing that some people have criticised, is people needing to find a leader or a cause rather than their own heart, their own, soul, their own being. That's the most important part. And when they're coming together of those like-minded beings, it's just a powerful connection. I think sort of lost my thought there, but everyone seems to be, like I said, deflated. The first wave was the Indigenous camp. The second wave was the first march. And the third wave was what happened on the Friday. They reported 1.4 million cars entering the camp on the 24 hours prior to the march. Pardon me. So the numbers were there. The feeling was there. It was amazing, but it's like a tsunami. If you read the biblical sort of condemnations to what's supposed to happen, well, that was a tsunami of love and people.
Mm-hmm.
Waves. After every tsunami goes inland and then it washes back out. But we all heard the calling once. If it happens again, well, people are ready to move. Like this is a real big moment in our future. It's great. Like leading up to it, people say, we asked to be here. We wanted to be here for this moment. Over the last 2.5 years, we've sort of been wondering, well, yeah, all right, I wanted to be here. When's the good shit's going to start? Epic Canberra for the 450, 500,000 people that were reportedly there on the Friday night, and you had to be there to see it. The 50 paddock that was filled in 6 hours. Yeah. Just unbelievable. And the wave of energy, it was just amazing. And that's that we need to focus on. We did that. Yeah. Don't be drained. Go back to your grounding points and recharge, because the next caller might be the party of our lifetime. I was drawn to go to the War Memorial while I was in Canberra. And that was the day that everyone went to the Governor-General's house. So I went to the War Memorial. I've got asthma, so I've got an exemption, so I didn't wear a mask in there, and everything was fine. For a couple of hours, they gave me a wristband, but I was approached and said that where was my mask? And I kindly said, look, I've got an exemption. I'm an asthmatic. I can't wear one. And she walked away and got about 3 or 4 metres away, and the next person who happened to have a mask, she just sort of looked back at me and went, how disrespectful. Sort of pinched a little bit, because, I like to think that those diggers gave their lives for me to be here at this point in time. So when I walked out and exited the building, it was almost as if I felt this, like a bit of a cheer, like good on you. You were the only one who was in there who was sort of showing the freedom that we fought and died for and hoped that Australia stood for. Then I spun around and saw Sir Weary Dunlop, and it was a real profound moment to see his statue and the position of his hand. I just thought, okay. So, yeah, it was, it really strengthened me for what to come. I marched, I did the 4.5K there and the 4.5K back, but I didn't stay for any of the speeches. I felt like my presence there, I think I stayed for about half an hour, and that was to sit down and rest on the side of the hill. But there was 2 stages set up too. They were very, it was a lot of conflicting messages happening, but we knew it was a battle. And everything was happening on the day, but as long as you weren't guided by that in your direction, I think we're on the right path. It's up to us individually to, some new party. That place in Canberra was built from nothing, and it's designed around an evil sort of concept, a dark place, and we need to accept that to understand it. And, the only way forward is through the sovereign people, but also to understand just what we're dealing with and who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with and who are you, are you a soul? Or everyone who drove through there realised that they had a soul if they didn't already know it.
Yeah. And there's been, talk about the leaders of the movement just abandoning and going and leaving the whole, and sort of dropping the ball, I suppose. But I was talking with a friend this morning and we were discussing all of this. Like I said, the birds, the flock of birds, the energy, like the energy peaked and it will never go back down to where it was prior to this. It may not be at that absolute peak, but it certainly came back down to a higher point than was before all of this happened. And it just continues to be this thing of constant, yep, we live in a world of polarity, it's going to swing, but we don't hit the lows that we hit when before the event. And that, the leaders are leaving and what's going to happen. And it's true, we have to go home into our own communities and become the leader there. Take the energy, take the concepts and go back to our own country towns or our own homes and communities and start the same sort of energy going. Start projects to help people, start gardens, start supporting each other and loving each other in our own communities. So this is the thing we model our own lives on, this coming together that you saw. You said that you were supporting and caring for people around you, and then vice versa. It happened, this exchange of care and help.
Well, it was so organic was a word that really struck me at one stage. That everything that happened, like no one, if you could, like when it really grew, you couldn't really make certain kitchens, like if you didn't have anything, but whatever anyone had was for everyone. Where I was, there was probably 10 people that looked out for each other. Like a few people who got lifts up were detached from the people that they came with, and some people just had nothing. So there was tents, mattresses, sleeping bags sort of found within half an hour to an hour, put up and established, and then their little hub looked after them. And the best part was walking around at night and you'd hear someone talk and mention a name and you'd sort of move over that way and end up in a conversation and share a drink or whatever. And, before you knew it, an hour had gone. But the next day you'd walk past and you'd remember, and the smile and the connection. And today when I was walking along the beach, it sort of dawned on me that if we can all take back that sort of greeting or that the way that we looked at each other, like there was no fear, there was no, we've got a mirror. So if you lead with a smile or some warmth, if it doesn't come back, well, you led with it. You're not giving your energy away, but you're projecting, a positive, good vibe. And that's what I take from Camp Epic was the good vibe and the people who walked around. Like Michael from Cafe Lockout is still up there, and there's some people who are in some desperate need of being looked after. So all I say to people is get ready. There might be another calling, sooner than we think. Ricardo Bossi was saying that we needed to be there this weekend, but the sovereign nations are talking a couple of weeks further down the track. So it'll each be their own flow, follow your own path. Like what you did was amazing. Don't think your job's done. You contributed to something that was that touched all of us because we're all together. I like to think that when I meet like-minded souls, the bubble of energy that I carry and that protection, when I meet the same sort of person that, or like-minded soul, that bubble doubles, and it doubles in size and strength. Imagine the size of that bubble and
I know.
And everyone who was there knew at least half a dozen people that weren't there. So even if there's, we take it back and say there was 2 million there, but I honestly believe that there was at least 3 million people in Canberra, 5 times their normal capacity. Let's be proud of who we are and what we stood for that moment.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. I really hope we did inspire the world and, showed them, because Australia is known for, having that sort of tough exterior, but we're so much more than that. We're so much deeper, and it's spiritual, and that's strength in itself. It's more so than physical strength. Spiritual strength is the key. I really, I'm so grateful that I got the chance to do that smoking ceremony. I think we've all been robbed of that. The disconnection to our land. If we want to say we're Australian, well, the original landowners are the original sovereign nations. So there's no shame in that. The shame is not connecting to it and wanting to learn about it. That's our culture. That's what we need to understand.
Yeah. And I think we've, been dumbed down in Australia.
Definitely. From the word go.
Yeah. And that we've never really struggled. And we know about how all of the conflicts are manufactured for a specific reason. So they've sort of left us alone to become really compliant. What's that say? Tasmania?
Yeah, well, things that have been manufactured. LFPA. Port.
Oh, yes, exactly. But that was, but prior to that, we've been pretty much left alone. The lucky country, that's how we defined ourselves for so many decades. And we were left alone. I mean, people that have, say, been in the Middle East or in Asia, they've really had to struggle a lot. But we have never had to develop that muscle. And we are beginning to develop that muscle to stand up, to talk, to declare who we are. Because previous to this, as long as we had our beer and our sport on the weekend, everybody was quite content. And
I was that man for 50 years. I've been involved in football for 20 plus years as a coach or an administrator, or even playing, so longer. And the machoism and everything, but it's all the sporting industrial complex is, we used to be pure for a while, but then all of a sudden, look at our grand finals, they're corporate, and what does corporate stand for? Corporation. I think the shocking thing is, if people really look into it, 1900s, early 1900s, we had a Great White Fleet sail into Sydney Harbour, and it was met with a ticker tape parade, but they left with 8 treaties, and that was for all our minerals, all our gold. We are collateral for a debt that England had after World War I. So then you start to see when the UN took over and when the reflection pool was filled in Melbourne prior to the Olympics, and then you see the Lima Agreement and what part Gough Whitlam played in it, and then to realise the whole way through that what we thought we were voting for independent, democracy, we were being sold a lie. And I think, it's confronting when you actually see that, but it's liberating to actually learn that we can change that, Citizenship, fellowship, we're all, on this ship. It's time to step off the ship and onto the land. And the only way you can do that is by denouncing your citizenship, get your sovereignty, and connect to the country again through the Indigenous, at the tip of the spear. Like I said, I was happy to talk to you because I'm hoping to help people who have been, I think, the COVID awakening, the ones who have been triggered by that moment.
I was going to say, what would you recommend people's research start or include if they're new to all of this?
You've got to be prepared to see the horror.
I know.
All of it. Not all. I recommend there's some things that made me cry, and I don't cry easily, but the realisation that, you've got to look into the Hollywood part of it. You've got to look into the red stuff that they seem to be motivated to use and how it comes about. The SRA, Rachel Vaughan, Fiona Barnett, Jeanette Archer, amazing women. And don't worry, at Camp Epic, I heard, a number of stories like that as well. I was blessed to actually be in that moment when a couple of ladies talk. So it's we think it may be on a minor scale, but once people really dig and find out, that's what's angered me. Every country town I went through, there was a symbolism of a place there, what I knew had happened or would happen, has happened at that particular location. And we need to be aware of that. We need to cleanse that to move forward. That's part of our healing too, We are going through a healing process, and we're stepping up, the spiral, everything, we're in the quickening too. So you have woken up, everything's happening, but leave yourself open for the drops and the dumps that come, because they will hit you. And be positive in your thoughts, because if you're anything like me, there's been so much self-doubt and loathing, fear and loathing of yourself. That disappeared at Camp Epic. I found some affirmation there. I know that. I found some love, and I was able to give plenty as well. I know that. I actually probably more known for having this on walking around, because I met a young man and I just happened to walk past and mentioned, geez, I like your hat. And he goes, really? And took it off and put it on my head. And I said, I can't take your hat. And he goes, no, I want you to have it. It was a kind of, so I wore it like a trophy, and I'm still wearing it now. I hope Matt actually gets to see it. So it was a beautiful soul and really kind. And I don't know if we'll ever experience that moment again, but we reconnected, and, whatever's next is going to be bigger and better. But how we do that, I don't think we need to come together. I think we can do it in our own grounding spots, but be synchronized when we do it.
Well, you've connected energetically, whether you realize it or not, with those 3 million. And you are now like a grid work that is spreading back out, little flames that go around Australia, and you're still connected. So it's very powerful what was established there.
Yeah, it was. And the people who are following their Christ, their heart center, or their soul, they're the ones who are really advancing at a very fast rate, in my eyes. I was lucky enough to meet Dale Holmes and spend time with Dale and another good friend, Donovan. And they've just been crucial in my awakening, and connecting. And so everyone just reach out. I've reached out to Campbell about 12 months ago now, and he connected.
That's Campbell of Autodidactic and Spiral Up.
Yes. But anyone who tried to film on the day, all the towers were turned off, and you couldn't even send an SMS to. Normally, when you can't do your lives or you can't sort of action your phone, you can still get a message or a phone call away, but they were just shut down. And it took until about 5 k's out of Canberra until you could actually get some reception. So
a
lot of people were still able to film. So there's drips and drabs coming. There's some great footage. It speaks for itself. People can't deny it.
Yeah, there's lots on Facebook. I've got some on my Facebook page that other people have posted. So you just keep sharing it and sharing it and sharing it so that it gets seen and passed all around the world.
No. Yeah, it was, we did it. We definitely did it. The calling happened, and we answered it. And, all credit to everyone who answered that call. Ones that didn't, who supported them, like the Canberra people. There's a lot of good people in Canberra, and most of the donations came from within that area, and there was lots. I mean, lots. So I don't know where it all went to. I hope it went to a good place, or I hope Michael and the rest of the people who are still there are getting
access it
through. Yes, because they're the ones that need it. If there was a fuel fund or whatever, they're the ones who we need to help. So.
You said that
you donate Cafe Lockout, I think will go to the right people.
So Cafe Lockout have a donation link, do they, on their
I believe
Facebook
so.
page?
Yeah, I believe so. So. Contact Michael. He'll answer. He's been amazing. I managed to we did our laundry together. So I had a 45-minute chat with him. He's
Right.
a terrific man with, you know, on the right path. Yeah, he
Okay.
was talking to people and letting them tell their story, you know, showing it for what it was. But he's a warrior on the ground, that man.
Mm.
Much love to you, Michael.
So what's next for you again? Did you say you're heading north to a...
Yeah, well, I've got a sort of, I went to Canberra on 23 cents and a friend of mine basically bore the brunt of the fuel. So she spent about $400 getting there and back, plus food that she hasn't told me, the little bits and pieces that she helped with. Yeah, so I've got to organise some funds but I really want to get to Ingonia. There's been I felt another calling for me, and what I learnt there was about water finds its own flow path and finds a path of least resistance. But I found that my whole connection was getting up to that camp to see those people, and I had a cuddle. One of them gave me a cuddle, and I nearly burst from something happened inside me after the ceremony. And a lady behind me goes, "I saw that." And I sort of said, "Oh," just felt, she goes, "No, your heart chakra opened." And I never sort of felt anything like that. So whether or not that's what it was, but there was definitely a powerful feeling that I felt from just this hug from, I think that was Gunjawar. I'll have to learn how to say his name, but the guy who carries the kangaroo skin that's getting the 70 nations to sign it, the sovereign nations.
Yeah.
His hug was, yeah, almost as Voyne's. So there was a gentleman at Epic that gave me a hug that nearly sent me to the moon. So you just have to be open for him, I think. Yeah, for the first time, that's rather when I actually knew the moment was happening, rather than realise it a day later that was a special moment. Like, that was a realisation of the moment in the moment. So, yeah, I hope it makes sense. I do ramble a little bit and waffle, but...
No, you're beautiful. It's wonderful to talk to you and hear your perspective. I also wanted to say that you came from Melbourne to here. So you were in the midst of all of that schmozzle in the middle of Melbourne. So what an interesting soul journey you have created this lifetime, to be in that intense stress and you know, just what was happening in Melbourne, and then to the love. So you've really seen both sides of that spectrum in the last 6 months.
Yeah, well, we've got to give credit to the people that got us there. Like, I'm a fan of old Maxie, Egan,
Yes.
Dale Holmes, yourself, Kelly and Campbell from Terraria, Australia. After looking at all the symbolism, I don't want to say their name and who they are, but after looking at that and seeing what that stood for, and then finding out the connections through Rome, the Vatican, Switzerland, you know, the whole gamut, studying the Bolshevism part and what happened in Russia and where Russia sort of stand. You know, I've gone through so many deep, disturbing sort of, you know, videos. I'm not a reader, but I visualize and I can just connect. I know what's real. I think I know what's real and what's not. It's like a relearning of old knowledge. That's how it's been explained to me. But it hits you in the gut when you just know that what you're watching is probably the real sort of description of it.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding what's happening in Palestine. You know, I feel guilty for some of the things that I just accepted were the narrative, which is not. But it's enlightening too. Knowledge is enlightening. You know, it's powerful too, because now I see things so much differently. Like if someone does a subtle move with their hands or whatever, I'm aware of it. Statues, you know, South Bank's a very interesting place for people to walk around and have a look at the different things that are there. It's everywhere. Go through the parks, and we all see it. Like Terraria for me was a godsend, because Erewhon and LHFE and what happened on Earth, watching all of that.
I know. Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
what a roller coaster that is.
Look, the last 2 years, like I personally have been aware and awake about this for 35 years. I went on the truther journey 35 years ago with Bill Cooper. So I started,
Yep.
I think I read Behold a Pale Horse like very soon after it came out. And the school I went, the spiritual school, we were all into all of this stuff, you know, the base on Mars and all of, you know, all the potential conspiracy stuff. But in the last 2 years, I was taken to another level of information, went down so many rabbit holes. First, as you say, the SRA, what's happening to the children, and then into Tartaria. And oh my God, you just don't think you can be mind blown anymore. But all of a sudden, the next thing comes. So are we on flat Earth? Are we under a dome? Are we in a water environment? Who knows? But you know what? Just stay open to go, well, you know what? I'm not going to be like this anymore.
That's right. I think
I'm going to go, what is possible?
So narrow-minded, and we're so programmed to dig our heels in and say, no, this is what's right, because Peter Kitchener said it, or, you know, it was on the news, or it was on 60 Minutes. No, that's not how you base your views. And now someone actually showed me something on the weekend, and it was profiling. Personality profiling, and the 9 different ones that mates. But then there was a circle in the middle of people who can see everyone's perspective without shutting off one. Like, it's empathy and try and. So I've gone down that many that I haven't closed off anything. I'm so open to, but the ones that stimulate me is the growth in my spirituality and connection to soul and source, and knowing that there's a higher me, and that, you know, there's so much in that. And then the past life stuff is very interesting. That, you know, that's where I think when you get that hit in the gut, that's something that you learned in a previous existence, if you did have one, whether or not it's conscience or, you know. But I think it is that connection where you get that little boot that says, hey. The amount of times I get cemetery things where I might hear someone's name, you know, and it comes up again. I'm watching another video, you hear another thing, and then you go and explore that, and then that leads to something else. It's just got to keep yourself open to it, because
be aware of all the synchronicity, all the things that pop up. I mean, that's exactly what happened in these last 2 years for me. You know, you click on this link and you go there and you talk to that person, and you just have to be willing to be open to follow that path, instead of shutting the door because, no, that's too much, that's just too far.
That's ego, isn't it? Is that ego?
Oh, it's
shutting the door.
It's a fear. It's that you know, humans don't like change. Humans crave the same old, because it's a very deep primal thing that if you upset the boat or don't agree or comply with the tribe, you could get kicked out of the cave and eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So it's there is a deeper sort of drive in it. But the controllers have used that knowledge, I think, and kept us in struggle and competition and separate.
They've robbed us of community. Like, even when we buy a house, what we do is surround it with fences. We don't want to interact. Like at the camp, there wasn't a fence anywhere that separated anyone. You're on top of each other. It was just so. That's how we're meant to be. I think we're meant to be like, we've lost our sense of community. Everyone's trying to buy out the neighbour rather than, you know, have the neighbour coexist. And I heard in part of, you know, some of the videos, I really want to exist with my neighbour. I never want to fight. I'm not looking for fights. I don't want to be aggressive. I want to be helpful. I want to be seen as being someone that you can comfortably come up to and ask for help, and you'll get it, you know. But yeah, I just think that we can go back to the fundamental basics, you know, respecting each other. And what we did at Epic was just walk up and smile and carry that good energy. Well, that's what I do along the beach every morning, you know. Good morning, you know, and a smile to you. And sometimes I get a conversation. I've met some wonderful people. Other times, you know, they're in their own zone or whatever. But yeah, just emit the same vibe that you had. And hopefully that's something that'll open some people's eyes. Not the mandates, not the word, you know. It's about your spirit, you know. Follow yourself.
Yeah.
Because if I met you at Epic, I loved who you were, so don't change. I learned to be happy with who I am. Like, you know, I got a lot of affirmation out of that. It's been a tough few years. Everyone's got their stories, and we were warriors to get there. We really were, and we'll do it again. It's nearly over.
Yeah, and it's going to be a hell of an after party, as they say, once we get through this.
Some were saying if when it does end, we should come back every year to celebrate it. Camp Epic, get back, because it was, yeah, look, there's so many great memories and great sights, and, you know, the people coming through the gate. I'm sure anyone who's watching this who drove through the gate and got those greetings all the way up to the back of the campsite, it was, yeah, they knew why they were there when they got there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me and tell me your experiences.
Oh, look, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'd just like to say that, you know, living in Melbourne was tough, but without you and the others who have been able to help, you know, navigate through what all this is, I'm grateful, but I'm connected to you because that's why I've followed you. I've resonated. And there's lots of people who are out there doing bits and pieces, but I honestly think you're coming from the right spot.
Thank you so much for that.
No, thank you.
Okay, then let's leave it there, 1:21. So we'll catch up again after you head up north, and maybe we can talk about what you've discovered and understood and experienced up there as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jay. Bye.